You are listening to a Cult Talk Network podcast.
Hail Mary.
This place had once been the seat of an evil older than mankind and wider than the known universe.
There was nothing within Heron, and nothing in sight save a vast reach of black slime.
Hail Mary.
Who knows yet?
The Lord is with thee. Hail
What has risen
Hail Mary,
may
full of
sink.
grace. Pray for us sinners
What has
now and
sunk
at the
may
hour of our
rise.
death.
Yet
Hail
the
Mary,
very completeness of the stillness and the homogeneity of the landscape oppressed me with a nauseating fear.
Loathsomeness waits,
Full of grace. The Lord is with thee.
and dreams in the deep, and decay spreads over the tottering cities of men.
Sinners at the hour of our death.
This place
Hail Mary.
had once been the seat of an evil older than mankind.
There was nothing within Heron, and nothing in sight save a vast reach of black
What has
slime.
risen
had once been
may
the
Yet the
seat
sink.
of
very
an evil
complete
older than
dreams in
mankind
deep,
and the homogeneity of
and
the
decay
landscape
spreads
oppressed
over
me
the
with a
tottering
nauseating
cities of
fear.
men. What has
There was
risen
nothing within
may
Heron,
sink.
and nothing in sight save a vast reach of
deep.
black.
I think I went mad then. Welcome everyone to another episode of Cultober. I'm Ben.
I'm Eric.
I'm Jerry.
And this has been a hell of an episode to get together.
Woo!
We've lost people along the way, sadly.
Yes.
We've gained some that have fallen off and come back.
We have fallen in and out of the void of despair. Of
Illness,
Yeah.
madness, the whole this
whole night.
episode has been a bitch. But here we are.
Yes.
It's been fun though.
Yes, it has been fun.
Fuck you, Jerry. Fun. It has not been fun. It has been a ginormous pain in the ass. This is our Lovecraft episode. So this was originally going to be like kind of a timeline of the history of the world of the way kind of things happened in Lovecraft's lore. Well, to do that, we have to do this episode for that to make sense. So we changed that. Bailey was supposed to be joining us. She was looking forward to it and had been doing her studying. And then life got in the way of that. Don't worry, she's fine.
Yep.
But she will not be joining us on this one. However, I can guarantee you she will be in part 2.
Absolutely.
And then everybody got sick. And
Yep.
then,
Sorry.
yeah, not just you,
Not just me.
but, and
It's on
then,
the whole team.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, special announcement. You guys will be hearing this for the very first. Me and Jerry are going to be on Cult Talk's Conspiracy.
Yeah. So that's exciting if due to some unfortunate things.
Which,
but,
if you've been following us, you're aware.
yeah.
But Ty is taking a very brief break. Do not worry. He will be back. But we're going to be sitting in for him.
So that'll be exciting. It's another crossover episode.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. We like to.
Crossover.
So it's been stressful. So with that, let's not waste any time to get into this thing. Lovecraft, this was obviously one of my ideas. Lovecraft has been a love of mine for a while. I was out of high school when I got into him. So I was later in life, but once I got into him, I really got into him.
Yeah.
And so once we started this podcast, it was just merely a matter of time.
I'm kind of the same way. It definitely wasn't until after high school, maybe even after the brief stint in college that I put in that I got into Lovecraft. Not as heavily as Ben, but I do have my favorites in there. So it's, yeah, I've been looking forward to this for a while.
And Jerry, what about you? What's your exposure to him?
Well, I was like not really into Lovecraft at all, really. I'd heard about Cthulhu and I was like, well, that's kind of neat. And then there's like something in the ocean and stuff. And then this project actually gave me a love of Lovecraft because I delved into stuff that I'd not even heard of before.
Right. And it's, I
That's
noticed.
awesome.
Jerry was coming to me. He's like, hey, I just listened to this story and I'm on to this one. I'm like, well, keep going. They're wild. And yeah, so that's great. I'm glad that you took to it. And just real quick, we'll do this one right off the top of the hat. There is no wrong way to pronounce any of these names, including Cthulhu. Lovecraft himself said in many letters that you could pronounce them however you wanted, and it was considered to be correct. He did prefer the pronunciation of Cthulhu.
Cthulhu.
For
Okay.
Cthulhu, the C is
Cthulhu.
silent.
Yeah.
But that was, I think in that very letter, he acknowledged that is just merely his opinion.
Cool. Nice. Yeah.
So Cthulhu is how the entity is known in popular culture. And so if we use Cthulhu, actually, go ahead. Bombard us in the comment section about how it ain't correct. You're wrong, but the interaction is nice.
But if you do want to leave us a comment and tell us how you pronounce Cthulhu,
Yeah.
Spell it out
Phonetically.
Yes.
Cthulhu.
Cthulhu. I've always been fascinated by the Cthulhu one, but I always say Cthulhu. Yeah.
In a game we play, Smite, he's referred to by the Lovecraft pronunciation, the Cthulhu.
Cthulhu.
So,
Nice.
so yeah, they chose to go with that one, which, I mean, I guess if you technically, I guess it goes to like whether you have the opinion of death of the author, which doesn't even apply here in the slightest.
No, he went ahead and took himself out of it. He was like, here's my stories and
do with them what you will.
Yeah, which I respect.
It's nice that, he like gave license to everyone to kind of enjoy it their own way.
Yeah, and to kind of add to it and
develop it.
Yeah.
Now, with that, I do have some staunch stances on this, though, because there has to be a line. Not everything can be canon. There has to be a line between fan fiction and canon, even when the author gives license,
right,
free license like this. Lovecraft himself was a rabid atheist. He didn't. So anybody that adds any sort of like deity that is religious in nature into the Cthulhu mythos, that's automatically out of there. That was against the very nature of what he was trying to establish.
Yeah, this is a very atheistic cosmos that he has created.
Yes.
Yeah. And also, really, if anything kind of directly contradicts anything that he's written or any of his...
Yeah, if it directly goes against anything that's in his stories, I think it's automatically got to be
more
discounted.
Of a fan fiction, yeah. Which is fine. He took a lot of influence from other people. You can take influence from him too. Just, canon and not canon. It's I'm sure there's actually plenty of debates about what's canon and what's not in Lovecraft.
Oh, I'm
lore,
sure.
But
I think most people have just thrown their hands up. I think it's a matter of personal preference.
I think so too, honestly. Yeah.
And so with that, what we've decided to do was kind of a pantheon dive.
Yeah.
Looking at some of the, you can call them gods. Gods are fine. The entities, deities, gods, creatures that Lovecraft and some of his tangential partners that help establish this mythos.
Right.
What's in it?
Yeah.
Although it is fun to note, Lovecraft himself never referred to it as the Cthulhu mythos. He actually named it the Yog-sothoth.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And that's because out of all the outer gods, Yog-sothoth shows up in the most, or is mentioned the most, in all of his stories.
Oh.
So if there was a single thread tying them all together, which there isn't.
Right.
But the closest you would find would be the outer god known as Yog-sothoth.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear about that one because I don't know that much about that one.
Yeah. So we'll go ahead and get started with that. So any discussion you have with the deities of the Lovecraftian Yog-sothoth. Yog-sothoth is actually my personal favorite of the deities.
Yeah.
So I actually like calling it the Yog-sothoth just because it gives credit to the one that I like. Although, listen, Cthulhu is famous for a reason. I think I know what that reason is, and I'll talk about that later.
Oh,
but
okay.
I think I know why he became the face. But any discussion of the outer gods has to start with Azathoth, which is Lovecraft's creator deity. Now, Yog-sothoth was designed to be, and I think a lot of these were designed to be critiques, pastiches, poking fun at.
Kind of satirizing.
Satirizing. Yeah, that's a good word for it. The concept of religious deities, because they're almost in the direct opposite of what their mainstream religious counterparts would be. Azathoth being the creator god, he's actually not even a he, it's an it, and it's a lot of times depicted as a flying amoeba.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which I found interesting. Lovecraft kind of doesn't ever describe Azathoth physically, although he kind of counters himself in saying that he sits upon a throne made out of stone, I believe.
Oh,
But I believe that's in Legends or Dreams in a Witch House.
okay.
But I believe there's a little bit of the in the eye of the beholder going on here, where, well, we know for a fact that every version of what you see of Lovecraft's creations are merely what your brain is allowing you to interpret. So, like, even the statue that Cthulhu is described as looking, that's merely a depiction of what a human brain comprehends him as looking at. That's probably not what he actually looks like.
Right.
So with that explained, what Azathoth is most commonly depicted as a flying amoeba, because in this creator myth, Azathoth is blind, deaf, doesn't speak, has no personality to speak of, and is just blindly crashing his way through reality, and life is just kind of breaking off of him as he crashes through space.
Yeah, almost like he's asleep, and where his dream is kind of what I've heard before. Is that?
So I think the way I interpret it is that creation life itself is actually coming off of him. It's consciousness that is given by his dreams.
Okay.
Because the idea of life kind of breaking off of him seems to kind of go against the idea of the dreams.
Right.
But also, how the hell are you supposed to understand these things?
Exactly. We're not meant to. We are mere mortals.
Right. So Azathoth, as he's crashing through space, he broke off his children, which are called the outer gods. And he is himself considered to be an outer god just because what else would you put him in? And they are kind of the tippy top of the pantheonic levels of Lovecraft.
Yes.
It don't get higher than them.
Right.
And there is Azathoth, who is granddaddy, the creation. There is the Nameless Mist.
Oh.
Which, there you go. There is Yog-sothoth, who is an outer god, and Nyarlathotep.
Oh, Nyarlathotep. He might be my favorite.
He's a pretty cool one.
Yeah.
He's your Satan deity, if you were going to break into such things.
Yeah.
Azathoth either gives life, sentience and cognizance by his dreams, or literally creates reality in his dreams. So even though he's this kind of blind, they call him the blind idiot god.
Yeah.
He's still asleep and dreaming. And because the other outer gods realize that this is the case, and that were he to ever wake up, all of reality would kind of cease to exist, they've all cohorted together to set up a cosmic symphony.
And it's horrendous to listen to, apparently.
Yeah, but it's like these flutes and drums and things that just keep lulling him to sleep.
So they're just playing music to keep him asleep and keep things existing.
Right. And there Azathoth rests in the center of all creation. If you are to find him in our reality, he appears, or at least the realm around him appears to be a black hole.
Oh, okay.
So
Neat.
if scientists were to find him in our reality, like where he's at in our reality, it would just appear to be a black hole.
Cool. Ooh, I like that concept. I also think it's really neat that music is associated with them, because it's been a while since I've done any comparisons to anything, but
Sure.
Sometimes I do comparisons, and that reminds me of at the beginning of the Silmarillion, where a song is very intrinsic to creation as well, but this is kind of flipped on its head.
The song is preserving creation rather than creating it.
Then kicking it off. Yeah. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, there's something about music that seems to be a very primal force in a lot of people's kind of religions and early establishments.
Yeah. And especially associated with beginnings and the universe and the way it works together. It's very, odd.
Yeah. Anyway, Azathoth, so his children, he actually had two children, was Nyarlathotep and the Nameless Mist. And then the Nameless Mist gave birth to Yog-sothoth.
Oh.
Although, and correct me, guys, the only reference I could find to the Nameless Mist from Lovecraft himself was in his letters. I don't believe he ever actually wrote a story that involved the Nameless Mist.
So that would make sense to me, because I don't think I've run across the Nameless Mist except just kind of tangentially mentioned in other wikis and shit like that.
Right.
Yeah, so that would make sense. I don't recall any stories myself, but
What about you, Jerry? Did you find anything?
No, this this stuff is new to me, but it's neat.
Okay.
I'm just picturing this giant amoeba like sailing through the universe, accidentally making everything.
Oh yeah. And then while he's like sailing through the universe, there's this symphony of this group of gigantic aliens that are playing these alien instruments to keep them asleep.
Just like floating along with them.
This entourage following them.
That sounds like
really is like a counter of like God, because God was designing things and purposefully putting all this together, and this is just like something accidentally, haphazardly doing everything.
Right, basically shitting us out by accident.
Yeah.
It was kind of Lovecraft's scoffing at the idea of like, do you really think that if there was this giant creator deity that he really cares about something as small as us?
Right.
Now, that's just because Lovecraft was one of the most neurotic people I think I've ever read about in my life.
Yeah. He lived in a very fearful world.
Yeah, so with that, we'll get the elephant out of the way real fast.
Yes.
Because I don't plan on talking about it much at all. Yeah, okay, he had racist views. I could give a fuck. I really couldn't give a shit. The guy was afraid of air conditioning. He was afraid of loud noises. He was afraid of crowds. He was afraid of shaking hands. He was afraid of drugs. He was afraid of germs. He was afraid of wide open spaces. He was basically agoraphobic. The dude tried to commit suicide when he was 7.
Jeez.
His dad was committed to an insane asylum. He was locked in with his mom. Like, he was fucked.
He had some problems.
Yeah. So,
I'm sure, I'm not about to say I'm sure. I know that a lot of the stuff definitely in his stories came out as racist, but he was afraid of everything. I really doubt that it was so much racism as it was just anything that was different and he didn't understand, he felt fear towards.
He didn't like Irish people. He didn't like Russian people. So it's like skin color had nothing to do with it.
Yeah. If you probably weren't from New England.
Yeah,
you were probably freaky to him.
Yeah, he probably didn't like Californians either, to be honest with you. I mean, who does? Stinky motherfuckers, but
Yeah, he was like even anti-Semitic, but like his wife was Jewish.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
He had Jewish friends. So like his racism was more like idyllic rather than in practice.
Right.
Well, I think that points to the fear. And then once he was able to not be afraid of the thing, it no longer held this weird sway over his mind.
Yeah. And I think, wasn't it said somewhere that he did have regret later on in his life?
So I had a book. I had a book that was a collection of his stories, and in the back it had several like notations in it. And one of the notations was that he towards the end of his life, which I mean, he was only like in his 40s. He died very premature.
Yeah.
He had regret over the shadow over Innsmouth in particular.
Mm.
Now, the reason why I wasn't going to bring that up is because
Sorry. Yeah.
No, it's fine. I was not able to find a substantiating source for that.
Okay, fair enough.
But that being said, like the way they pan these fucking algorithms, you put H.P. Lovecraft and racism in a sentence. Like you could put like, did he ever regret racism? And the algorithm only picks up those 2 words, and you've got 60 fucking because it's trying to find actual information that isn't inflammatory as a motherfucker.
That's true.
But anyway, did it affect some of his writings? Yeah. But the thing is, it didn't affect him so much that if you're not willing to look past it, that you can't. The Shadow over Innsmouth is largely looked at as being one of his most racist stories, but I would like to submit to you, and if you don't know what we're talking about, this will make sense later. The people of Innsmouth did sell their souls basically to fish people. Okay? Like everybody talking about how weird they were fucking looking, how weird they were fucking acting. Yeah, okay. You could say like, oh, it was his way of symbolizing these people or that people. And that very well may be true. But in the story, they're fucking demon people, okay? So it's not like in the story, the people are being weird to the people of Innsmouth for no reason.
Right.
So if you literally just take it at face value and just accept the story for what it is, it's fine.
All right.
Moving on.
Yes, there we go.
So there was the Nameless Mist, and then Nyarlathotep was the second true descendant of Azathoth. Nyarlathotep is special out of all the pantheonic entities in Lovecraft's stories.
Yes.
And that's just because for some reason, he's the only one that cares about humanity. And by cares, I mean he has an opinion at all.
Yeah.
And his opinion is, we're fun to fuck with.
Yes.
That's his opinion.
Absolutely. He likes to walk the earth with us and to cause things.
Fuck with you.
Yeah. he likes to stir up some chaos. He's
yeah,
pretty much
like he appeared, I think it was like in ancient Egypt,
Yes.
and was doing electrical shows, like Tesla style electrical coils, just because he wanted to see the people flee because he thought it was funny to watch them run.
Yep. And he could appear in like thousands of different forms. And he is really unique in that of the, is it outer gods on this level?
The outer gods.
He is the only one that does have like intention. That
goes all the way down. Like the great old ones are the same way.
Yeah.
They don't have intention towards humanity either.
That's true. Yeah. So for some reason, he does.
He's aware of it, and he likes to mess with people.
And we are not better for it.
No. Which, I mean, it's so funny because like his power level is, I mean, like Infinity Gauntlet on crack, for those of you that don't know. Like, so the fact that he's just like, I like to see him run. That's fucked up.
Yeah, really. It's like an adult playing with an ant colony.
Not even.
Yeah.
Not even.
It's
I can't even come up with
what
an analogy that's that lopsided.
Oh, we might break my brain a couple of times trying to figure this one out. The scale of our mind to them and what we are to them, and we're nothing. We're just nothing, except somehow he sees us as something enough to play with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's part of the horror of this whole Lovecraft thing, is it kind of like sets humans alone.
Yeah.
And
things that are like just beyond us.
And just completely outweigh us in every direction.
Yeah. And the only one that does care about us doesn't give a fuck about us.
Nope. For him, it's just pure entertainment. And who knows what he has planned for us after that amusement is run out.
Oh, yeah. Because he's one of those, like every single one of these beings, especially at this level, like time is a completely irrelevant concept to them.
Yeah.
They can.
Yes.
He has all the time in the world to fuck with us.
Yeah. If you're one of our 40K listeners, like it's the warp, baby. These guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and that brings us to Yog-sothoth.
Yeah.
Now, Yog-sothoth, you'll find videos that say he's a direct descendant of Azathoth.
Okay, right.
And then you'll find videos that says he's a descendant of the Nameless Mist. That is, as near as I can tell, that's because if you just go from the straight canon of the stories, he's a descendant of Azathoth. Because the Nameless Mist, I don't think ever made it into any of his stories. So you have, there's that missing parent. Yeah, I'm okay with Yog-sothoth being a descendant of something that's not Azathoth, but I think it kind of ruins the whole Trinity vibe that he had going.
Yeah.
Because you have like the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost with Yog-sothoth. So Yog-sothoth is kind of the god of knowledge. Is also the god of doorways and entrances and portals.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Anytime you cross any sort of doorway, Yog-sothoth is aware of it.
Oh, that gives me chills.
Yeah.
Ooh. I walk through doorways so much.
Anytime you're doing anything that accrues any sort of knowledge, listening to something, reading, anything that is like, accruing knowledge, Yog-sothoth is aware of that. And he already knows it.
Yeah, he knew it beforehand, but I don't know. Yeah, time and all.
He knows it beforehand, but he's also aware of you learning it.
Oh, he's kind of the Lovecraft equivalent of like Metatron. Those kind of gods that take down notes and Akashic record sort of stuff. And
he is also the keeper of the gateway to Azathoth. Nobody gets to Azathoth but through him.
But through Yog-sothoth. Okay.
Yog-sothoth often looks like a bunch of floating orbs.
Yep.
Or like a giant, and by giant, we're talking like multi-planet size, massive writhing tentacles.
Yeah.
And squirmy bits.
Gotta love those squirmy bits.
There are several other outer gods that have been added to the pantheon by other people.
Right.
I'm not going to cover them because I'm looking for any excuse to do more episodes of this that I can.
Fair enough.
So there are more. Which one? I should have looked this. This is the one part that I didn't remember. Who gave birth to Cthulhu?
Oh, that's a good one.
I'm going to call it right now. I think it's Nub and Yib.
Well, that's a funny name. There's my dad, you Nub and Yib. Nub and Yib and Nub and Yib.
Nope, it's Nug.
Nug.
That's even better.
Nug.
I think it's Nug and Yib.
Nug and Yib.
Nug and Yib. Y-E-B. Oh, okay, yeah. So, okay, cool. So there is one elder god that I'm forgetting because I often think that it's a great old one, but it's an
Right.
elder god, and that's Sub-Niggurath.
Oh, yep.
So Sub-Niggurath is a pretty cool one. It's the only one that's like a female.
Yeah.
And it's the mother entity of the Lovecraftian pantheon.
It's like a fertility goddess equivalent.
Yeah.
I love it.
Also known as the Black Goat of 1,000 Young.
Yep.
Her young, so she just basically, they like when she appears, they just come crawling off of her in like slimy goops.
Yeah.
And they either die right there, and if they die, they get absorbed back into her, or they live and become great old ones, or just however strong they end up being.
Yeah. Just various different creatures.
A lot of them have hooves.
Yeah. And some of them look like almost like trees walking on hooves with their the tentacles look like branches and stuff.
Right,
and,
from that Robert Bloch story.
Yeah. And I feel like I've run across that earlier, but that's a great story. Ben turned me onto that. What was that called?
It was called A Diary in an Abandoned House.
Oh, it was so good. Please check that out.
I believe that's what it's called.
I think
we'll link it.
Yeah,
we'll
that'll
link
be in
it
the
for sure.
Yeah, we'll definitely link that.
But
that's a good
Sub-Niggurath gave birth to two twins, Nug and Yib. And then Nug gave birth to Cthulhu.
Okay.
Which makes Cthulhu an great old one.
Yeah. Just a couple generations down from Azathoth.
Right. 3, I believe Azathoth is the great grandparent.
Mm-hmm. Could be 4 or 3 or 4, depending
3
on
or
whether
4,
or not
depending on the nameless. Yeah, depending on where.
That was
depends on Sub-Niggurath.
Yeah.
So 3 or 4 generations removed, and Cthulhu is actually the priest. Kind of, how would you describe him?
He's like a high priest.
Yeah, but almost like what would you call the Catholic version?
A disciple, an apostle.
Yeah, he's almost like a cardinal though, because
in the hierarchy. Yeah,
in the hierarchy. Because when he wakes up, it's supposed to be like all of the religious cults that worship all these other deities are going to gain power and take over. And
he's a pope.
Yeah. I guess if Azathoth is God, then Cthulhu is the pope.
Yeah, speaks for him, and Nyarlathotep then becomes more of a Jesus Christ and/or Satan.
Yeah,
I guess.
Well, that's the son.
Yep, that is the son.
So Cthulhu is obviously the face of the whole H.P. Lovecraft thing.
Yeah.
And he is described as part human, part dragon with an octopus head. Now, he's described twice in his own story.
Mm-hmm. Call of Cthulhu.
Yep. In detail. This is something that does not happen in any other H.P. Lovecraft story for any of these other entities that we're going to talk about, for the exception of, I think, the Elder Things.
Elder Things get a pretty darn good description.
Right.
Yeah, but they're more of an equivalent. Nice. Yeah. They're more of an equivalent to us than they are these other things.
But even the deep ones, which are in a couple of stories, Dagon, which is in has his own story. There's a bunch of, almost none of these entities are described with the same clarity
that we get with Call of Cthulhu.
With Call of Cthulhu, which is why I think he became the face of the series. If you need something how do you put a mascot on a pantheon where it's number one trait is it can't be described, it's indescribable.
Yeah, you can't understand what it is. Yeah.
So I think the fact that he described Cthulhu so well is what made him stick.
That makes sense.
People could see it more clearly than, say, Nyarlathotep. He's like a pharaoh, but he's all black, like oil black with white eyes.
Yeah.
And then his other descriptions are not descriptive at all.
Right.
Which is a trait we see time and time again.
Yeah. So Cthulhu's kind of the highest order of these things that has a physical way for us to understand them.
Right.
Yeah. So that makes sense. I think your theory is pretty sound there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he doesn't show up in any of Lovecraft's other stories.
You're right. That is it, isn't it? Just Call of Cthulhu.
Just the one.
I never thought about that with just how big he is in our culture. Wow. Jerry, he really is cool, Cthulhu.
Yeah.
I had to find an excuse to get that picture in there.
There are worse
Very
ones.
cash money of you.
There are worse versions of Cthulhu than that.
That's true.
Yeah.
So, do we want to talk about where Cthulhu resides? And
Relia?
stuff? Yes, Relia. Thank you.
So he resides in an underground city known as Relia, or however you decide to pronounce it.
Right.
But what's interesting is if you are into any of our other stories, or if you've listened to Cult Talks Conspiracy, I'm sure that you've heard of the bloop.
Yes.
Jerry, do you know what the bloop is?
I've heard of the bloop. It's a loud sound that was recorded.
Yeah. So the bloop was an ultra low frequency sound recorded in 1997. And it was recorded on, I believe it was 3 separate underwater microphones that were off of the coast of various countries. It was huge.
Yeah, it was a big sound.
Yeah, it was a ginormous sound. And originally, they came out and said that it was biological.
Yeah.
Which would make it the largest creature on Earth by
orders of magnitude. By like our modern science couldn't understand how a living creature could get that big.
Large.
Yeah.
Right. And then a little bit later, they're like, oh, nope. It's just ice shifting on the bottom of the ocean, to which I go, okay, I'm not a scientist, but do those sound similar? That you guys get confused? It's kind of like where they're like, it's an alien spacecraft. I mean, weather balloon. I'm like, do they look?
Do they look that much alike?
Are people so confused by a weather balloon that they're like, look, alien? I'm okay, if you say so, pal. But the interesting thing about where the bloop happened is it's very close to the kind of area that Lovecraft described the city of Relia being.
No. Oh, no. Listen, there's 2 things I just don't want it to be that ends the planet, and that's aliens and Cthulhu. And I don't know which one I would hate worse.
Is that in the Pacific Ocean?
Yep.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, I'll send that to me. We'll post it. You'll see 2 points where, the bloop is and where Relia occurred. Maybe he was just taking a morning walk on the seafloor. Because he is sleeping in that city for the most part.
Dead, actually.
Yes.
Dead but dreaming.
Dead but dreaming until the stars are right.
Jerry, I just sent you that picture. Take a look at it. Shows you how close the bloop and Relia are supposed to be. And I'm pronouncing it like 2 different ways every time I say it.
Right. That's fine. I keep saying Relia, I think.
Where did you send it?
On your phone. But anyway, that's just one of those weird kind of
odd coincidences. Hopefully a coincidence.
But yeah, Cthulhu is at the same time dead, but dreaming.
Yes.
And his dreams will affect people around the world the closer those stars get aligned to letting him out.
Yeah. And it affects like their dreams and they kind of go mad.
They do. They break out into like fever and sweating, and they become delirious. And it actually, the more artistic you are, the more it affects you.
Yep.
And the more like logical and scientific you are, the less.
Which that's something I actually kind of missed my first several times reading the book, was like, it's affecting the world. Like there are bouts of madness it would have been cool to see more of the global effect of him a little bit more. It didn't really stand out to me so much.
Well, it's hard to do when you're in the 1920s.
And it really is. That's true. But it would be neat. And if there are stories out there that just exist that are like, this was happening at the same time as Call of Cthulhu, that would be pretty interesting to check out.
Yeah, let us know if there were any bouts of madness around the time that this was supposed to.
Yeah.
We'll start putting those puzzles together, and then we just won't be here anymore. But anyway, Cthulhu kind of occupies this weird middle realm of he is the most popular while being not one of the most underpowered, but I mean, he's...
Right, he's kind of small fry.
He is kind of small fry compared to some of these others.
He's only affecting one planet at a time, as far as we know.
Yeah. That actually might be because I've been sitting here kind of wondering how to describe the difference between an outer god and a great old one. Like, what is the difference? Besides just simply going, well, power level. It's like, well, what the fuck does that mean?
Right, yeah.
Outer gods seem to have the ability to affect reality and existence itself.
Yeah, without a limit that we can see. Yeah.
A lot of the times when an elder or an an outer god kind of, when they actually take place in the story and actually affect the story, it's the barest minimum of them in it, which
Right.
causes the most tremendous effects. So, like the Dunwich Horror is a good one for Yog-sothoth.
Yes. I love that story. That's a good story.
And it's like, he literally gave, I'm not going to go through the entire Dunwich story, but basically there's this family called
Was it Whitley's?
The Whitleys. And it was a husband and the albino wife. And they did a ritual where she got pregnant by Yog-sothoth.
Yeah.
And it's literally like a small ritual. Yog-sothoth literally just gives her the tip. Like, it's just like this bare minimal, and it's just a little bit of Yog-sothoth enters the realm. And what it does to these two kids is just insane.
Yeah.
Is it Albert Whitley?
Ooh,
I think it's Albert.
I'm not sure. Oh, there was a film.
It was not good.
Oh, damn it.
Yeah,
That's me.
Lovecraft was not very sexual.
No, he wasn't.
Kept that to a minimum.
Yeah.
I guess his wife had to make him read romance novels to figure it out.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, because
Follow
she was
these
pretty sure he
instructions.
was a virgin when they got married.
Oh my God. That's an interesting way to go about that. Just follow the instructions in the erotic novel or the romantic novel.
That
She's
might
like,
give
so why
some.
don't you read these?
That Wilbur Whitley.
Wilbur.
So
Yeah.
Wilbur is the oldest of the two children. He is a grown man by the time he's like 5.
Yeah.
When they finally are able to get a view of like his whole body, he's half mutated and he has like these soft gooey pads for feet, and he's got his torso has got like suction cups on it and mouths.
Yeah, he's got some eyes on his torso too.
Yep,
and
these
stuff like
giant eyes that are on each hip, I think, that blink and look
that.
around.
Yep.
And his brother, who doesn't even have a name, it's just the Dunwich Horror,
Right.
is
That's the horror.
invisible, but the size of a barn,
Yeah.
and eats cows and sucks the life out of them. And so, like, this is what happens when the essence of an outer god kind of enters our realm.
Yeah. That's like barely scratching into our reality.
Whereas Cthulhu, he breaks out of his tomb and then gets rammed by the boat
Yeah.
and shoved back in. And the guy that's driving the boat lives.
Yeah.
So the power dynamic between the two is what only separates them, but it's a ginormous power dynamic.
Right. Yeah.
And that really is kind of, every time we go down a new level, the steps down really are kind of that dramatic.
They're pretty drastic. Yeah. I'd say so. Because, Cthulhu, I remember being kind of confused by Cthulhu being defeated by a boat, but he does start like reforming immediately, but he does retreat back.
Yeah, I think what it does is the him having to reform kind of delays the time enough to where, and also I think humans have to free him somehow.
Oh, okay. I
think there have to be a human presence there.
Gotcha.
Otherwise, if it's just a matter of the stars aligning, he would have awoken
a couple different times probably on his own.
at least one other time.
Right.
So I think there has to be I think it's time sensitive, obviously, because the stars have to stay aligned, but also I think there have to be humans present for him to draw off of. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just my guess.
Yeah.
Jerry,
Yeah.
what do you have?
Oh, I have some elder things.
Are they old?
They're pretty old.
Little elderly.
Do they talk about like before women could vote and,
Yeah, actually.
The hard R they're not ashamed of.
Oh, God.
They could probably have candy in their pockets.
Oh, butterscotch.
Ew.
Definitely
Yeah.
butterscotch. Hey, fuck you.
I don't want
Butterscotch
their-
candies.
Oh,
good.
no, not the candy. Just the thought of taking a candy from them sounds gross.
I don't think I would.
So what's
Yeah.
an elder thing?
So an elder thing are from the At the Mountains of Madness.
That's
was
the
published
big
in-
story they're from, I think.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's his novel.
Which that's a
1931.
cool story.
Yeah, I think I'll describe what they kind of look like, what we know, what they kind of are.
Yeah.
Sure.
So they're 6 feet tall, probably varies a little bit.
Right. That's
But
probably
I
the
had-
average.
They have an oval-shaped body with like starfish-like appendages at both ends, and on the bottom, it's got like a 5-limbed appendage with like tentacles that it moves around on. They kind of slow, but they like crawl around on that.
Yeah. And
The top, they have eyes and feeding tubes coming out. They're kind of wild looking. And they also have retractable wings.
Which is hilarious because nothing about this thing sounds like something that would fly.
no, not at all.
No, it does not seem aerodynamic.
At all.
But apparently they can fly and they can also sail.
Yep. And like exist underwater aquatically and stuff like that.
Yeah. They also come equipped with a 5-lobed brain.
Ooh.
So a brain with 5 lobes.
Wow. Compared to like our 2.
Yeah.
Okay.
They are apparently capable of a very advanced thinking.
Yes, they are. They're very scientifically advanced in their time.
They're very sturdy, and because they're so versatile, they can live pretty much anywhere on Earth, like in the deep ocean, in Antarctica, and harsh conditions.
Very durable skin and temperature resistant. Seems like it doesn't seem like they're much affected by temperature at all,
Not too much.
or at least not the cold.
Yeah,
Not so much.
They have the ability to hibernate for like long periods of time. I believe they have no threat from predators because they're actually the first alien race to inhabit Earth, so it is said.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they colonized over 1 billion years ago.
Geez,
That's
1 billion. Okay. I have, some of my things have some long time spans for when they were established, but not as old as the elder things.
They had advanced technology, but they had little need for it because of how resilient they were. They didn't really have to use it very much. And they would reproduce through spores rather than sexually. So they would just like spore off and make a new one.
Kind of almost plant-like. They almost sound like gross, sentient flower things almost. Like plant, almost like they could be plants, but they're...
Yeah. When you look at them, they're very like plant corally like.
Yeah.
I guess they had energy-based weaponry.
What? I guess that makes sense, but wow. Okay, right. Yeah.
Yeah, like I don't know what they would need that for, but they did.
Yeah.
Well, I guess later on they would have needed it. They also were capable of advanced genetic engineering.
Yes.
So that made them like the oldest ancestral things of life on Earth was created by them.
Oh, they're kind of like our progenitors.
Yeah,
In a way.
a lot like it, like that alien movie Prometheus.
Yeah.
Kind of like that. There's a couple reasons they may have created all that life on Earth. Is they think possibly for food because they could have been carnivores.
Uh-huh. Okay.
So they needed something to eat. They were like, "Oh, we'll make something and then we'll just, eat stuff."
They also, one of my guys is actually one of their genetic creations too. So we'll get into that. And that kind of led to their downfall.
Ooh.
In a way. Well, spoiler, but...
The other reason that they may have made things is so that they could harvest the psychic potential of humanity in the future.
Oh, wait, what?
Yeah, so it may have been like a pre-planned thing where they are harvesting, like they knew that humanity would evolve eventually, and they would want to harvest that psychic energy that all humans have.
Oh,
in some way in the future.
No kidding. Well, that's something I'd never run across. They knew that we would come, probably from the way they meddle with things, because they weren't seeing into the future or anything, were they? The elder things?
I mean, it's not
unheard. They were pretty darn advanced.
Is it the race of Yith that can travel through time?
They can.
Yeah, those are the Yith.
Yeah, but I'm assuming if they can, then I don't see why the elder things couldn't at least look.
Yeah.
They might not be able to travel like Yith, but I would be willing to bet that they could at least look in.
Aw. Well, at least somebody had a plan for us.
I don't.
If you read the In the Mountains of Madness, you kind of end up feeling bad for them.
No,
I do. They're kind of like they're one of the few equivalents to like human beings in the mythos. I think that they're the closest thing to us that I think I've found.
If you say so. Heretic.
Whoa! Oh God!
Uh-oh.
Don't tell the Emperor.
No, I don't feel bad. The only motherfuckers I feel bad for in this is us. Like, none of these. Fuck them. Absolutely fuck them. They're all evil.
Well, they created, which I'm sure Eric will get into, the slave race of the Shoggoths.
Right? Yeah, the Shoggoth.
Yeah.
The Shoggoth.
Shoggoth. I've been saying Shoggoth myself, whether or not that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Shoggoth.
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 Shakalaka.
I actually really like the Shoggoth.
Yeah, me too.
But
They're really
once
interesting.
again, it's like they're minor.
Yeah, they're small fry. Should I take this opportunity to go into them now? Do you have more on the elder things that you want to go into first?
Just that they were at war with other alien species like the Great Race of Yith, the Mago, the star spawn of Cthulhu, the Great Old Ones. They were at war with all these guys.
Yeah, so the elder things in Cthulhu and the star spawn of Cthulhu actually made a deal that Cthulhu got everything under the waves, and the elder things got all above.
Oh, okay.
And then they slowly started getting pushed
back.
Yeah, and then I think Antarctica became their last bastion.
Right. Yeah.
I guess in the Ice Age they went into hibernation in their Antarctica,
in their city, which those are the mountain. Their city is the mountains that we're talking.
At least part of it,
right? Yeah, like it appears to be.
Yeah,
that their buildings were. Yeah,
which is where they find a what, Eric?
A Shoggoth or Shoggoth. Shoggoth.
No, that's a sex act.
Shaggoth. So yes, the elder things created the Shoggoth, and the Shoggoth were once again they kind of go off of this amoeba like imagery, and they were genetic creations of the elder things. It sounds like they were created to be mindless servants, probably primarily to build their cities. And the Shoggoth were, let's get into their physical description. So they're shape-shifting. So if they were to be in the form of a sphere, they would be about 15 feet in diameter. Although there are bigger ones and perhaps smaller ones, and they're rarely in the shape of a sphere because they can just kind of form themselves into whatever they need to be at the moment for whatever task. So they usually look like this big blob, amoeba-like blob with eyes floating on the surface. They can form organs and appendages as needed. There was a word for the appendages that I found and wrote down somewhere, but it's a tendril, a blob that comes down, and amoebas actually do this in the real world. They'll form these appendages, temporary ones, to help them move around or eat.
Flagellum?
Flagellum, that was it. Yes, thank you.
Nice.
And
the one at the Mountains of Madness was like the size of a train, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was definitely like bigger than it should have been.
It probably absorbed all the others.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good point, because by that time they had dwindled in number pretty far. And like I said, they were controlled mindlessly by hypnotic suggestion. So that's how the elder things would control them. But over time, and a couple of different times, they developed sentience and rebelled.
That would be... Can you imagine trying to fight a rebellion of things that can just morph into shit?
Oh, that'd be awful. Especially if you're like, it keeps happening. You know, there were probably millions of years between different rebellions, but it happened at least once before the last one.
Then why keep them around?
But, I did find that it was implied they were, by that point, too dependent on them.
Oh, you dumb motherfuckers.
Yeah. And honestly, late in my research, I found that Shoggoth are kind of becoming a meme for AI. It's a comparison that people are making.
Yeah.
So, and that's a little scary.
Oh, no,
honestly.
That makes sense.
Yeah, doesn't it? Yeah.
Dumb motherfuckers.
So, like, they started, because they ended up wiping out the elder things. Essentially, there were obviously some elder things left, but the Shoggoth were able to overpower them, take over, but they didn't have much of their own pizzazz,
they didn't have
influence.
The Shoggoth had no society.
Yeah, no society. So whatever they did come up with was a mockery, or mimicry, really. One of the things we hear a Shoggoth actually say something in the Mountains of Madness, at the Mountains of Madness. Tekalili, Tekalili. And this was a cry that they probably mimicked from the Elder Things. So it was probably a word in Elder Thing language. I imagine it probably means, oh shit, or help me.
Some sort of exclamation?
Yes, some sort of alarm. But that was...
I got a few, but I'm not going to say. Hands up, don't shoot is one.
And
I can't breathe is the other.
please help, I can't breathe. Yeah, because that.
Oh, thank you, Eric, for repeating that and making yourself just as culpable in the George Floyd insult as I am.
Oh shit! I didn't realize that's where that was from. No, not fair. Damn it. But it was funny. I mean, it's interesting you say that because the way that they would kill them was kind of a decapitation, but it was like almost like a suctioning force. So they probably couldn't breathe while they were getting their head ripped off.
The
Shoggoth would rip off the Elder Things' heads.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
So it probably was I can't breathe.
Yeah, that's why I agreed. I didn't mean for it to be a Floyd thing. But yeah, and that's how the humans discovered some dead Elder Things that had woken up and tried to go back into their city, and they found them with their heads ripped off. And
I actually am. I'm on the Shoggoth side on this one.
I mean, yeah, you've enslaved me. I'm gonna rip your head off.
Well, if you're stupid,
I am Spartacus.
I am Spartacus.
Oof. Now there's
Ooh.
just bunch of Shoggoths be like turning into Spartacus. I am Spartacus. Tentacles coming out of their weird orifices. But I mean, don't enslave sentient things. If you enslave something that's not sentient, fine.
Right.
But if you discover that it goes sentient, you must exterminate it.
Right. Use that technology to become more self-dependent again.
Or find something else.
Right.
Hear that, robots? Look out.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no, listen, you get uppity with me and I'm likely to smash you like a PlayStation controller. I hate technology.
Just hold a magnet to it.
I don't
yeah.
have to.
Magnets, water, dirt. Yeah. Those are good weapons.
Yeah.
We'll just hold Ben up to it.
That's true. He is a curse when it comes to technology.
I don't like it. It don't like me. So naturally, I try to do a podcast.
And apparently, now I had a hard time sourcing this, but apparently the Shoggoth also were later experimented on by Deep Ones and by Migo. So there may have been some Shoggoth variants, but overall...
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, so there are Shoggoth. So the Shoggoth do run with the Deep Ones. We find that out in Innsmouth.
Okay, so that's... Okay. So
but I wonder if that was part of the negotiation with... Because the Deep Ones are under Cthulhu's
domain. Yeah.
So the way it's largely established, or the way most people that I've found understand it, and the way that I understand it is there's the Deep Ones, and then Dagon, which is kind of like a giant deep one.
Yeah.
And then there's Cthulhu. So like the Deep Ones were like his foot soldiers almost.
Okay. Gotcha. Were they the star spawn of Cthulhu?
No, they're a little different.
Okay.
But the star spawn were more like the generals in the army.
Oh, okay.
But, or at least that's kind of the way.
Our best way of classifying it.
Yeah, that's the way I would classify the relationship, because I just don't see how else it works.
Right.
I often wonder if the Shoggoth were just either something they took during the war with the Elder Things and were like, oh no, we can make these now.
Yeah.
Or whether the Shoggoth sided with them against the Elder Things.
Ooh, that could be. Yep. Because they clearly didn't like them when they got mines for themselves.
Or did the Elder Things perhaps give them some Shoggoths as part of the negotiation? Be like, hey, listen, you have to, like, you're backing off and build your city under the water. We'll give you these things to help build your city.
Right. Yeah. Could have been part of the negotiations.
Yeah.
I like that there's some options. That's pretty cool. Like, how did they get their hands on them? You know?
How did Shoggoth wind up with Deep Ones?
Yeah. And I think the ones associated with Deep Ones are kind of referred to as sea Shoggoth, although I think most Shoggoth can be amphibious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything that I know of them states that they don't breathe.
Right. They can just,
They just exist.
Yeah. They have whatever they need to at the time to
Right.
exist and do their shit. So that's the bare bones rundown on them. They appear on a few different things. The cry that they make, the Tekalili, that was a reference to an Edgar Allan Poe story that apparently influenced Lovecraft. There was a great white bird that had that cry in it, or something like that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
He was big on nods in his stories.
He really was. Yeah.
It was the only way, I feel like one of the only ways he could really express his admiration for people.
Yeah. Giving them nods in his stories. Yeah. So
let's jump back over to Jerry, because he's got ones that I actually find very interesting.
Yeah.
The Race of Yith.
The Great Race of Yith. I thought these guys were cool.
Yeah, their big story is The Shadow Out of Time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that story is fucking wild.
Yeah. That's about a professor that like starts to go mad, And he what happens with him is the Yith switch consciousness with him over time.
Yeah, they're like in the future, right? And then they jump back to the past where he's at and control his body.
Or they're
yeah.
in the past.
Yeah, they can be in the past or the future.
Yeah. I wasn't clear on that when I explored the story.
I just assume that they're in the future jumping back because I don't feel like going cross-eyed and forgetting how to tie my shoes.
The Yith are actually an alien race that came from the planet of Yith. And they can project their consciousness across time and space. So what they really did was not actually come to Earth. They just sort of swapped their consciousness with things already on Earth because they were about to go extinct on their planet.
Okay. So they needed somewhere else to go and new beings to inhabit?
Yes. So they inhabited these strange, immense cones that are like 10 feet high. Like these are not something we have a fossil record of, but
right.
But it's something that kind of you could see in a fossil record. They look very fossilized things that we have.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of words for some of the animals, like almost shelled animals, except these guys probably didn't have shells. How they kind of formed those swirly cones or something like that.
Yeah. They had like a head and other organs attached with like 1 foot thick appendages at the top, and they spoke by like clicking they had these huge claw things.
Yeah, like crab hands almost.
Yeah, and they would click them or scrape them to communicate. And it's likely that they could communicate through telepathy, but that may have been some way that they spoke to other races.
If they can speak cross species
and time
time mentally, they can speak to each other mentally.
Yeah.
They would walk by expansion and contraction of this viscous slug-like bottom.
Ooh.
So that's kind of weird. They had just like this. They would send out their little squishy part and then move across that.
Oh my gosh.
Can you just like appreciate how when Lovecraft created a creature, they didn't look like anything, like when he decided to describe something, it didn't look like anything you had ever heard of or have seen since.
Boy, you're right. Like he took a lot of influence from other people, but it was never what his creatures looked like.
Hell no.
Yeah, it was very unique. He has a hell of an imagination.
Yeah,
these things are creative.
Yeah.
They're wild.
Yeah. We have psychic crab slugs.
Like, I'm not even done describing this thing.
No, God.
We're
like it had a head with a big yellow globe with 3 eyes and flower-like ears.
Oh.
Like you'll probably see that in some of the images that you'll see.
Yep.
It had a 4th appendage with it had like 4 trumpets sticking out of it.
Oh, and they didn't talk with that?
Don't be stupid.
That for.
Don't ask.
I guess they also reproduced by spore.
Yep.
Again, no sex.
That goes back to what you were saying earlier. Rare's the sex in Lovecraft.
Yep.
A lot of spory things. Of course, that makes sense for a lot of how old these things are. I guess it at least it jives a little bit with our evolutionary knowledge in our world. God, those things are ugly. I'd want a spore instead too.
I mean,
no, one of the cool things about them, I think, is that they probably do this out of curiosity. Like their big thing is just gathering knowledge.
Oh, okay.
So they do this like across time and space to like many different eras of humanity, and they bring the person, like they'll go live inside a person in like the Victorian era, and they'll, the person will sort of go mad and become very adventurous and go and learn everything they can about the place and time and stuff like that.
Uh-huh.
But that person's consciousness has been kicked back into the city of the library of the Yith, which is in Australia.
Oh,
yeah.
Which I thought that was just, I'm like, okay, Howard, we're going to Australia on this one, buddy. All right.
Good Lord.
That's one of the rare times that he's mentioned anywhere that's, not his area.
Right, like Arkham or, yeah.
Yeah, but he went to Australia for one and Antarctica for the other.
Oh, yeah. That's true. Yeah.
But yeah, the person is, walking around the Yith city and like they have access to all the knowledge that the Yith has. But then when they get sent back to their bodies, they erase their memories.
Oh,
yeah. So you get to didn't he get to talk to like all these famous people that were dead or were supposed to be dead?
Got to talk to like someone from like ancient Greece and stuff.
Oh, what?
Because they were in the bodies of these other Yith or
Oh,
whatever.
yeah.
Whatever they were doing. They were there with him because they were being inhabited, and so he was able to carry on conversations with like these old people, these people from just ancient times.
Oh man, there's some silver lining at least, because that's kind of neat. Yeah, I wouldn't prefer it, but
I'm sorry, but I don't want to be raped by an interspace time hopping thing because that's rape. You're inhabiting my body without my permission.
yeah.
It's a real
Yeah.
mind fuck.
Yeah, and it like ruined that guy's marriage and shit like that. The main character in
Oh
the,
yeah,
in the story.
but when he finally got to go back to his body, he was plagued by these terrible dreams, and like his wife and kid had left him because the Yith was just like acting like a mad, information hungry thing.
Yeah, didn't
And
care
they were
about
like, we
anything.
can't live with you like this.
Which there's no way you would be able to.
Yeah, no
No.
kidding. Oh man, that's terrible. And then just it takes a vacation and just ruins a guy's life all casual.
I mean, the Yith actually, I think they're a really cool creature, but they scare the shit out of me just
Yeah.
because them and the elder things, they scare me more than like Cthulhu and them because they're what the elder gods and the great old ones, what they do to us is just purely by happenstance. The race of Yith and the elder things, scientists freak me out because when they go sideways, it's real bad.
Yeah, and they are scientists.
Yeah.
Both races are. Yeah. Elder things, what they did when they woke up and came out of their Antarctic coma was attacked the camp that had taken them in and dissected a bunch of people
Yeah,
to
'cause
see
they're
what
like,
the
what the
fuck they were dealing with. Yeah. What is this?
God damn.
Yeah, so that's kind of an interesting concept. While we're on that, it's like, okay, religion, no. Science, also not fantastic.
Well, that's because he was afraid of everything.
Yeah. If we're the test subjects, that's a cool way of looking at, we're the lab rats to these things when we come across them, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a thing to be used.
Ugh.
All right, Eric, what else do you got?
Okay, so I have
The flying polyps.
The flying polyps, who did have a run-in with the Great Race of Yith. A run-in is putting it
war.
kind of mild. War, yes, war.
I know. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine bringing like Howard into modern times? Be like, sit down, man. I want to tell you a story, and you just lay out 40K to him.
Oh my gosh, yeah. He'd probably be like, yeah, that sounds about right too.
He would be like, so I like the warp. Can I play the warp?
Can I play the warp?
You're
I want
like,
to be
yes,
chaos.
yes, Howard, you can be chaos.
So
Just don't yell at any ethnic people, Howard.
please don't. Yes, times have changed, sir.
They have.
So the flying polyps, also known as the bubbling ones, flesh twisters, floating horrors, and probably other things, they first came to Earth about 75 million years ago. So they do not predate the elder things as far as we know on Earth. They may have also inhabited other planets in our solar system, perhaps Mars, Neptune, Venus. On Earth, they built great big basalt cities, which is like a volcanic rock.
Interesting.
Yeah. And they were massive windowless towers. I don't know why windowless, but
Well, they
didn't.
don't have any eyes, do they?
I think they have eyes. Sometimes they seem to have eyes. I actually did not find a lot of good description of
But
a
they-
solid description of them. Yeah. So in that vein of thought, they pretty much appear. They're called flying polyps. Not in the story. They were more of it's a polypus horrible thing. So the fans called them flying polyps afterwards.
Right.
As some way to classify these things. And they're called a polyp because they look like cancerous masses, basically, that float around. Part of them is visible and exists in our plane of existence, and part of them seems to not and is often invisible, which kind of reminded me of the creature from the Dunwich Horror. It was an invisible force that could affect the real world.
Yeah, you also see that in another mythos story by Robert Bloch called The Shambler and the Stars.
Ooh. Oh, that's a good name.
Shambler of the Stars.
Shambler of the Stars.
But it's another one of those invisible creatures that comes in and
Yeah. And kind of affects things physically too.
kills Howard. Lovecraft is a character in the story and it kills him.
That's so great.
And then Howard then wrote a story that Robert was the main character and killed him because they were good friends. And then Robert Bloch also went on to write Psycho.
Oh, that's cool. Oh, that's neat. I didn't realize there was a connection to Psycho there.
Yes.
So isn't that cool? They put each other in their stories. I love that. But so the flying polyps, they appear to fly. There are no wings. And on top of that, even though they don't seem to have any legs, they tend to leave these, I would describe them as footprints in the loosest of senses. They leave like these
tracks.
Yeah, tracks. There we go. And they're like 5-toed is the word I used. I can't remember why I used that word. Probably because it's, again, me trying to understand. But these radial, circular, 5-toed footprints along as they go. So they may have legs that they move along with.
We just can't see them.
Right. And another reason that they may be called flying polyps is because they also had a lot of power over like the elements, particularly wind. And this is what I thought was pretty cool about them. They have such control over the wind that maybe they could, use that to pull things to them to attack. And I found references to them just like using wind to strip the flesh off of people's bones. But I don't think that was in the story they appeared in. And that may have been in the expanded stuff with like video games and stuff like that.
Right. But I mean, if they can lasso people and use it to manipulate their own bodies, I don't think that's outside.
Right. Yeah. And so these guys, again, they came to Earth about 750 million years ago. They were driven underground by the Great Race of Yith, apparently when they arrived. Do you have how long ago they came to Earth?
The Yith?
Yeah.
I do not.
Okay, that's fine. It may not have ever been stated. But they were driven underground by the Great Race of Yith until about 70 million years ago. They rose up and in one fell swoop wiped the Yith out.
They must have just
Earth.
been reproducing down there.
Yeah, and just holed up and because they had everything kind of sealed up and regained their strength and came back out. And then after that, most of the flying polyps left, although many did stay and remain sealed up underground, where, our character from the story.
Shadow Out of Time.
Yes. I think he has an encounter with them, one of them at the end. I wish there was more on these guys. There actually isn't too much. They're pretty mysterious, but I like that about them. And I think they seem to be one of the more aggressive species.
Yeah, they're one of the more villainous entities.
Definitely. Yeah. I don't know what they were doing in their basalt cities, but they didn't really like when... I guess I heard one theory that once the Yith showed up and that they were taking over other things' bodies, it may have offended the flying polyps. But that's speculation from
Pure
other
conjecture.
sources. Yeah. So, yeah, flying polyps, gross and windy.
Like a fart.
Like a fart.
And then the last race we'll cover are the deep ones.
Yeah.
Oh, the deep ones.
Yep.
The deep ones are pretty cool.
Yeah.
Their two big stories are Dagon, kind of tangentially, but Dagon and then the Shadow over Innsmouth, which is a really good story.
Yeah.
They are basically like fish people,
Right.
but they like to make deals with human beings. They create trinkets out of gold and jewels and gems that are from outer space that I believe they've gotten from like Cthulhu and some of the great old ones and the elder things, probably.
Nice.
Because the deep ones seem to be more like a servant race, but they make deals with human beings. In exchange for this wealth, they get to introduce their genetics into the human line and therefore reproduce and repopulate their
own race.
Yes. And so the human being, the human offspring or the hybrid offspring looks like a human being at first, but the older they get, they slowly start to morph into a deep one, which is coined the Innsmouth look. Is that right, Jerry? Is that what they called it? Or the Innsmouth effect? Do you remember?
Yeah, it was the Innsmouth look.
Innsmouth look.
Innsmouth look.
It's what all the people in the surrounding town would call what they didn't know that was that mutation.
Right.
Jerry, what'd you think of Shadow over Innsmouth? You were reading it, or you did read it.
Yeah, I was listening to the audiobook of it. I think I made it about halfway through and haven't finished it yet, but I want to because it was pretty cool.
How far did you get? Do you remember off the top of your head?
I got to the point where he had sort of gone into the country a little bit and was talking to a drunk guy.
Oh, okay. So they're sitting on they are either sitting by the firehouse, which is where he first meets him. But if they're getting drunk, if they're drinking and the old guy's telling them the story, they are sitting on the docks.
Yes, he had got some alcohol so that he could talk to that guy.
Right.
lure him
Okay.
into telling his tale.
So yeah, they're sitting on the docks
Okay. Just
of Innsmouth.
you just chilling right by where they could reach up and grab your feet.
Kinda. Yeah. That story paints such a good portrait of a town.
Yeah. Good. I actually don't think I have read Shadow over Innsmouth. I've read Dagon.
You should.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I think that wraps up our creatures.
Yeah, that's our short. We know that there's still a lot more that could be covered in Lovecraft, and
Oh yeah.
honestly, we'll be doing another Lovecraft episode at some point in the future for sure.
Most definitely.
Yeah. So,
But I want to ask you guys, we'll start with Jerry since he's the newest. Jerry, what was your favorite story that you got into, and what was your biggest takeaway from getting into Lovecraft that you found that you enjoyed?
I think I like the elder things the best to learn about because I do love alternative Earth histories.
yeah.
Because when I was a kid, I was really into fossils and dinosaurs and learning about Earth's ancient past. And that just kind of is a neat lore to that whole situation.
Kind of real. It gave you something new to learn about in the past that, could reframe things or,
Yeah, I love in the Halo universe where the aliens came and humanity was evolving, but they de-evolved us a little bit, and then because we were trying to mess with them and stuff. But
Interesting.
yeah,
yeah, that is.
Jerry, did you ever see the movie Stargate?
I don't think so.
We'll have to watch that sometime. It's kind of like aliens came to and established Egypt sort of thing.
Oh, see, that's cool. That's up my alley.
Yeah, it
It's
sounds
got-
like it is.
Got
yeah.
Kurt Russell in it. It's a good movie.
Yeah.
But what was your favorite story?
The Shadow over well, actually, Dagon I liked.
Yeah,
I
Dagon's a
did
good
like
one.
Dagon.
Dagon is a nice condensed version of what he's all about.
Yeah, you get the sense of this cosmic horror kind of thing, and it's unknown and dark and inky and very ocean themed and just things that are beyond human understanding. You get that from that story.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And his use of language it's either an acquired taste or it's just something you'd like.
Right.
It can be difficult for people. So Dagon is a good short story so that you don't have to, if it is hard for you to digest, you don't have to suffer through it.
Yeah.
Eric, what was your favorite story and your takeaway?
Okay. My favorite story is I'm going to say At the Mountains of Madness, just because I don't want to be too cliche and say Call of Cthulhu. But I'm with Jerry. I like that alternative history sort of stuff.
You can say that one. It's a classic.
I mean, it is. You're right. That's fair. That's a good point. But I'm on it. Honestly, I'm just very divided between the two as it is.
Fair.
With what my favorites are. But
That is fair.
yeah, I like the idea of Call of Cthulhu, where it starts affecting people on that mental, psychological level worldwide and stuff like that. And so, which leads more to my takeaway from Lovecraft lore. I love that idea of cosmic horror. And it's much less of today it's kind of become, all tentacles and darkness and stuff like that. But you still get stories that really grab the heart of it, which is less gross and more hopeless and cold. And, staring out into the void, a lot of the times somebody just makes something gooey and gross and it's Lovecraftian,
My favorite example, I think my favorite Lovecraftian movie is probably Alien, that first one.
Oh, yeah.
That
yeah.
first Alien is Lovecrafty as all fuck.
Yes, it really is. That's a good point.
The shadow, the color out of space.
Uh-huh.
That with Nicolas Cage. That was pretty good.
That was a good movie.
And and they're doing Dunwich Horror next, I guess. I'm pretty excited about that.
Good. I've always thought that of all of them would make one of the best movies.
Oof.
I think that would translate really well to a movie. I do.
I'd like to see Shadow Out of Time. That'd be wild.
Yeah.
Oof.
Fish People Town.
No, that's Shadow.
Or no, sorry. Yeah.
That's the one. That's
Yeah.
with the Great Race of Yith.
Yeah. Oh, Lord. Now they're really cool. I didn't know anything about them before we started studying this for this episode. So that was a good eye opener for me. I like the idea of these essentially scientists that don't have to exist in the same time as the thing that they're studying. They're, and turning us into rablats to learn, I like it. I think it's pretty cool.
Did you say rablats?
I may have.
Rablats.
Rablats. I hope I did.
Yeah, rablats.
It took me a minute to even think of how to say that.
Listen, my brain's a little melty today. What about you, Ben?
Well, thank you for asking.
Yes.
So my favorite story is The Haunter of the Dark.
Ooh,
it always has been. It's the one that is dedicated to Robert Bloch, where he's the main character and he dies at the end. I don't know why I love that story. What I love about it is the beginning where he's talking about sitting in his room and just looking out across the landscape and seeing this other town and seeing this black church in the distance. And it's almost like he's not sure if it's real. And he almost feels compelled like he has to go there. The build up to it is just phenomenal. And it's got a little bit of a lighter touch than a lot of his other stories. I love Shadow over Innsmouth,
right.
Mountains of Madness. I like all of his Cthulhu mythos. If I had to pick one that wasn't a mythos, Horror at Red Hook was interesting. It's one of the few ones that he did that actually has magic in it, like legit magic.
Oh, okay.
Those were pretty few and far between. So Horror at Red Hook was interesting.
Cool.
But and my favorite thing about him, and I think the reason why I kind of got into my brain so much, is all of his stuff is first person and it's presented as hidden knowledge.
Yeah.
It's a journal that you as the reader stumbled upon that you're not supposed to be reading, or it's, in the case of the Mountains of Madness, it's somebody writing a warning letter trying to get you to listen to them.
Yeah.
You are always, I feel, left with the sense that you had heard, if it's the audiobook, or have read, if it's something you're reading, something that you weren't supposed to hear or read.
Yeah.
And I think that's what helps preserve its air of mystery to me. And not to mention, the further forward in time we go, the more crazy shit that happened in the past seems plausible. So like when you read it, one of the things that really helps is it's set in the 50s when they're children. And that makes a lot of what happened, the fact that it's so strange but nobody said anything, seems so much more plausible when we're living in a day of technology today, when it's like cell phones and computers. Like if any of this was happening, it would be getting out.
Right. It would be recorded and blasted on the internet right away.
And so the mystery is removed pretty quickly. And so the fact that these are set in the teens or in the 20s really helps with that air of mystery. And he was just really good, I think, at that. And that just sat with me.
No, I agree. He was doing found footage before found footage was popular.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. That's a good way. It does have a very air of found footage.
Yeah.
Yep.
I agree. That's really cool. And that probably is a big part of what makes it feel so real to us a lot of the times.
I think real is a good word for it.
Yeah. I get a little lost when I go through At the Mountains of Madness. It feels very much like a scientist trying to make sense of what his experience was.
And there's something, the kind of, if there's a downside to that, especially in the Mountains of Madness, compared to say Dagon or Call of Cthulhu or any of the other ones, Mountains of Madness does come off dry.
Yeah.
It's very much like day and time, this happened. Next, day and time, this happened. But what it does is by the time you get to where stuff is happening, you have gotten into the monotony of the day with the characters so much that when stuff starts happening, you're like, wait, what's happening? White penguin, what?
Yeah. Oh, the white penguins. They are the only fucking creature in the Lovecraft mythos that I would be okay with meeting.
Giant
big
albino.
6-foot albino penguins that are blind. Yes.
I would love to know what's with the penguins.
I know.
Howard, why the penguins, Howard?
I think that's the Poe reference. It was some sort of big white bird or creature in the Poe story that he referenced. So he might have put those in.
Raven, I need a bird.
Yes.
I need a bird. What's the bird I could use?
Penguins. Threatening and unknowable.
Yes.
Like the mysterious koala.
The dark beady eyes.
Dark beady eyes.
Like a
Like
doe's
a doll's
eyes.
eyes. Yeah, exactly. The penguin's like, they're not beady. We can't see.
Yeah, we can't see. I don't even know if they necessarily had eyes. They were just described as blind.
I'm assuming that means they had pink eyes.
They might. Oh, yeah. Yeah,
pink
being
sight-
albino.
The
Yeah.
pink sightless eyes.
Yeah. Those poor things. They got run over by the Shoggoth while the humans were escaping.
And fuck them penguins.
Oh.
I'm getting the hell out of here. I'm not picking one up and running with it. You know how heavy a fucking 6-foot penguin would weigh?
Too heavy. Too heavy.
Somebody in the comment section do that math. Scale a penguin up to 6 feet. How much would it weigh?
Oh my God, please do. That would be amazing.
I wouldn't even. Yeah. I wouldn't even know where.
I don't know
to
how to
start.
calculate that shit.
That's what I'm saying. I wouldn't
Yeah.
even know where to start.
We're podcasters. Give us a break.
Yeah, that means that we can't. Like, we're not qualified to do other shit.
Exactly.
I'm gonna guess 6.
Yep.
I'll second
All
that
right.
guess.
So I think that's a good place to end it.
Okay, so time for the wrap up stuff. This is where a lot of people usually fall off, but for those of you who stick around, you the real ones. This has been Cultober. First time we've mentioned it all episode, but Cult Talk Net's Cultober. Here we are, deep in it now. You should know by
They
now.
know.
They know. You know. It's fine. Be sure to check out our other episodes of Cult of Lore. If this is your first episode of Cult of Lore with us, we are typically covering Warhammer, but we branch out
40K.
yeah,
Warhammer
40K specifically. Thank you. We do branch out into other things, and we'll continue to do so.
Now, don't run away.
Yes.
We have an episode 0
Yes.
that will get you caught up on Warhammer 40K in a hurry.
Yes. So it's a broad overview. If you don't know anything about Warhammer 40K, you will by the end of that 45, 50 minutes episode
Right.
there. So
And
it's a good
just so
start.
you know, Henry Cavill has announced that he is doing a television show with Amazon. So it's only going to get more popular. Time to jump on it now. That way you can be up to speed.
Yeah. You can also check out our sister shows. There's Cult of Campbell, where we check out Bruce Campbell movies and give them a rating of groovy, not groovy, and talk about all sorts of Bruce Campbell related nonsense. There is also Cult Talks Conspiracy, hosted by Bailey and Ty, and they talk about all sorts of different conspiracy theories, and they work in, I mean, they've got a lot of cool stuff now, like UFOs and
Creature features.
yeah.
I think Hobskinville Goblins was the last one.
Yeah, I think so. They've also got probably werewolves out by now, which the three of us were on. Speaking of crossovers from way back.
And also me and Jerry are going to be on the next episode, which I believe is going to be the island of Roanoke.
Ooh,
Not to
neat.
step on any
Okay.
announcement to.
So, yep, there's our sister. You can find other things Cult Talk Net related by typing at Cult Talk Net into Google. We have a link tree. We have merchandise shop at Cult Shop Net. There'll be a link where you could buy cool stuff. If you're only a listener here, listening audio only, we have a companion episode on YouTube that has a lot of visuals in association with this episode. If you want to check that out. Oh, I don't know how Ty does this all the time.
Man.
He's good at plugging shit. Like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff.
Leave a comment for the Emperor and the algorithm.
Yeah.
There's always at least one motherfucker that goes, for the algorithm. We're like, God damn right.
Oh, I love that.
That's actually our favorite comment usually.
Oh, yeah. It makes me so happy when I see for the algorithm. I do a salute in real time when I see it.
Yep.
Yes. Oh, it's fantastic.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's a good place to end it if they're still here.
If you're still here, if you are still here, God love you. All right. Or Yog love you. Yog-sothoth.
Yog Azathoth love you.
Azathoth love you.
Amoeba love you.
Oh, great.
Amoeba love you to long time.
Mm.
So with that, guys, thanks for joining us for another episode of Cult of Lore. I'm Ben.
I'm Eric.
It looks like we're a shadow out of time.